150th birthday coming up out of Georgia. He was born in 1868. His brother Sam and the others were born when the first Ku Klux Klan was born in 1866. My grandfather survived 50 years, but when 1815 took place, 1915, and the Birth of the Nation movie, which was a revision of the Klansman book, the new Klan rose, and they took my grandfather out. And it's sad enough, the tears that I shed when I even mention it, I ain't sad, I'm glad. Meaning, if the Klan had got him before, they murdered him in 1917. If they had got him in 1915, 1914, I wouldn't be here. So, you know, but the fact that he could survive 50 years from the first Klan to the second Klan, and they didn't have no help. You think it's bad that now, what we just saw? I mean, the women could be just taken and abused. Men could be worked to death. You could own land. They would go falsify the papers. You thought you had land. You had worked years for it. And they went down to the courthouse and jiggled the papers, and you were without. The fact that he and his people could survive that and leave the way for me to be here. So he was murdered in 1917. So last year we celebrated the 100th anniversary of his murder. But what you realize what they did to survive, it's in us.
Yes.
We got it. You can either tap into it and become strong and deal with your circumstance, or you can go and get the blues, like you just had presented to you on the screen. Systems analysis will say that is the system, yes, but you can't put it on a film. It's a reality. It's a reality. We were sucked out of our systems and took it and survived survival culture. But you can't control your world unless you move to developmental culture.
Right.
Systems analysis is necessary for you to understand that. Systems mean you got to control your economics. That's the first principle. I use the triangle shape to try to explain things. First principle is economics. That's your productive, creative capability. Everything has to be productive or creative, otherwise it dies.
Yes.
Every cell in your body has to be creative. The bodies in the atmosphere have to be. Creative, productive capability is what we need to see. But it can't work for you unless you have the other polarity, which is politics. Politics is the management capability, the administrative capability. Politics and economics are the platform on which life is developed. But in order to make it work for you, you got to have the pinnacle, which is culture. Your father understood that. He breathed it. He laid it out. Culture. Culture tells you what type of economics to devise and utilize and who to do your politics with. Now, with that formulation, we can go through with a victorious consciousness and apply that to little places where African peoples have survived. And then if we pull it together, we can go into developmental culture where you control your economics, you control your politics, you control your China. You can't beat back the Chinese. They went through hundreds of years, if not thousands of years of beat down. Now they're coming back. If Amiri was here, he'd say, well, look, no, the Chinese are doing what the Chinese are doing for the Chinese.
Right. Right.
And so we have to understand that. That's what Arabs are doing, what the Arabs have to do for the Arabs. Your thing is, you are the first people, the most significant people. You've got to do for your people. You done did it. You built cultures, civilizations that have gone and aided everybody else. So we got to get on a victorious path. So we're blessed beyond blessing to be in Newark, New Jersey. I don't care what you say. And Newark is not just Newark, it's greater Newark.
Newark.
We can call it whatever, but you have to see you're not restricted by boundaries, city lines. And then you have to have the leadership that's inspiring. So I've been blessed to be a part of a Newark, New Jersey in which our people fought like hell to get a piece of the action and to sustain it, build institutions, maintain it, give us some sense of purpose and direction. I was with his father in Barringer. He was at the upper classes, but the Payne brothers were there too, Donald and Bill. The Cesar Peoples were there. The Jeffries boys, my younger brother Hakeem, the one who's on the front page now, his brother and I, we were the youngers in Barringer High School. But in Barringer High School, you had something going on in terms of they instilled a fight in you. But it was happening in West Side High School. It was happening in South Side High School. It was happening in East Side High School. So we need to understand the history. Gloom and doom, no. It's a big issue because the most important thing in this globalism that we're referencing now in terms of gentrification is the role of black people. What are they going to do? If you didn't have a spirit like Raz moving through Newark, they would have some idea of what they're going to do. They're going to put their controls in place.
That's right.
But with his spirit and what he's inherited, they don't really know what can. Newark can set the model of what happens in terms of urbanization.
How we do that?
Well, that's what we got to discuss. He's trying to run a city, taking care of business, and he come here to be talking to us. So let's let him talk. You know, let's let him just give you a few little things, just to let you know that he's an extraordinary, great African.
Yes.
Doing his work.
Yes.
Well, he didn't do this for me. Oh, I saw him, he didn't say hello. That's a paralysis of analysis. He understands systems. He's been dealing with systems analysis to try to make Newark a model of what might happen to urban areas. So I'm going to defer to him. I love him. I'm glad he's here.
Wow.
I can't believe it. That he's,
I
boom.
can't believe it either. Boom.
Thank you, Dr. Jeffries.
And
You know, I
before
know
he
for a long
says
time.
anything, let's give a shout out and a thank you for his mama.
Yo.
Revolutionary School. Yes.
His birthday was December 5th.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Tell him we
days
send
ago.
our happy birthday. I'm always late, so I'm sending.
Yes. Sure.
December 5th. Yeah, it was interesting. We actually had a meeting the other day at George Washington Carver Elementary School with the Economic Development Department of the city on December 5th, my mother's birthday.
Okay, fantastic.
And we began the meeting talking about the New York Times article that came out December 5th, 1972, that talked about the Kawaii Towers. And how we going to rebuild or build the Kawaii Towers in the spirit downtown, because it was stopped purposefully, and not just because we believe that should happen, but
Right.
just some things, spiritually have to take place, But at the heat of that, the heart of that discussion was talking about what the film was talking about. And sometimes we do, like Dr. Jeffries was saying, what we do is we get so beat down by everything that's happening that we grow cynical. And cynicism is really the enemy of hope, right? So if you don't have, I don't have the luxury of pessimism, right? Because I'm the mayor, I have to be optimistic, or else why am I going to be the mayor? If I don't think things can be fixed or changed, then I should not try to fix or change them. Right? And I can't get discouraged by people who believe that they're never going to be fixed or changed. I have to try whatever I can. God, I'm glad that Harriet Tubman wasn't cynical, right, or a pessimist, or Nat Turner wasn't a pessimist or cynical, or who believed that everything was so turned against them that if they revolted, that it would result in nothing. And people may say that he was killed, all these other kind of things, but those revolts led to other things.
That's right.
And I know historically, the Dr. Jeffries can point out a whole line of things that happened as a result of that led us to a path of where we are even today. That you have to do something other than just
Stand for nothing.
Right. Talk about how bad things are. You have to, create something. And I heard the brother say, how are we going to stop it? Well, I don't know anybody who has stopped the onward march of capitalism.
Right.
What you can do is protect yourself.
Yes.
And that is what you try to do until, as Dr. Jeffries talked about, systems are changed, right? And I don't have the luxury to wait for the workers of the world to unite, so I have to do some things immediately to make sure that people survive, that they get jobs, that they have access to things that they don't have access to. It's a privilege to be able to come to a place and debate academic ideas. That's a privilege. People don't understand that because some folks don't have the ability to do that because they have to worry about, are they going to eat? Do they have employment? Do they have a place to live? Right. So they don't have that luxury to have these kind of discussions all of the time. And when we realize that, you have to understand that there's some things that we have to do immediately to take care of folks so they can have the kind of small, it might not be big, the small kind of opportunities to come and have a debate in a place around issues and ideas on a full stomach, right? And not worry about where their kids are, where they're going to sleep at, and all these other kind of things at the same time. So there's some basic things that we have to do. And I heard her say that people are buying up stuff. What I wanted to understand is why we don't buy up the stuff. When they say somebody's buying it up, well, it doesn't preclude you, except, I know we don't have the kind of capital that other people have. We don't have the same head start that other people have. But collectively, we have opportunities that we might not have individually. And so that's why we have our men's meetings. We have other things. We try to collectively bring people together to say that, three of you are more powerful than one of you, and that your collective IQ is greater than your individual IQ, and your money together can take you further than your money alone, right? If you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, you go together, right? Mm-hmm. So African proverb, it's important for us to be as collective as possible. And for to me, elected officials are really here to protect you while you fight. And I think the problem is people think that elected officials' jobs are to fight for you. And that's different. And I
repeat that,
right,
please, Mr.
Right.
Mayor.
So I think what elected officials' jobs are, in my mind, is to provide cover fire, I should say, to protect you. Like, for example, in the community, if you had a radio, right, or if you had some new sneakers, that's economic power. If you can't protect those sneakers or radio, is anybody who can take it from you, right? So if I could take your radio, if I could take your sneakers, that radio and sneaker can become mine if I can't protect it. Political power is the ability to protect what's yours, right? But if you have anything in the first place, you don't have anything to protect. So we have to begin to get the things collectively that we have to begin to own. And then political officials are designed to provide you cover fire, not fight for you. You have to fight for yourself, right? You have to fight for yourself. Our job is to help you survive that fight, extend that longer, give you opportunity and space to actually win those fights. What happens is, and I heard this the guy talking about elected officials' job is to get reelected, and it creates a dichotomy. That's true, but the reality is the people who elect them are the people in these communities, right? So how do you? It doesn't make sense that you have to go to people in the community to elect you, and those people keep electing you, and you're not providing the things that they need. The problems that we had in Newark are 50, 60, 70, 80 years long, right? These are not things that were created last night or in 2014 when Ras Baraka became the mayor. These things have been going on for decades, right? And so at the end of the day, you're waiting for people to do something for you that you have to do for yourself, right? And those officials are supposed to partner with you to protect you along those lines. As long as New York becomes saturated, Hoboken, Jersey City, West New York, all of those places, Weehawken, become saturated, and the cost of living, an affordable apartment in New York City in Lower Manhattan is $3,000, right? That's an affordable apartment because the area median income is too high. So that drives not only working class and poor people, that drives almost everybody out, right? So, and so what it does is it creates a market for residential apartments and space in neighboring cities. When those things become saturated, so Newark is really just the next stop on the train, right? Because regular working people can't afford to live in those places like Brooklyn and other places. They're going to come to Newark. People who are renting in Brooklyn come to Newark and buy homes.
And they come to Harrison and rent those apartments that are springing up overnight.
That's right. Because the market is demanding that happen. So you can either sit back and watch that take place. That's not really a function of elected office, you know what I mean? Because that's going to happen no matter who's in office. You understand what I'm saying? What you do while you're there is to create programs and opportunities and other things to kind of mitigate those situations so they don't stampede on the people that are here and give you an opportunity to begin to struggle to preserve what it was yours, right? And to expand, because wealth, with that comes wealth, right? It comes resource. Because we are almost like in a no-win situation, because prior to that, the status quo was nothing. Abandoned property, abandoned buildings,
Right.
no place to sit down and eat, no stores. And so what people do, got a little bit of privilege, they live in Newark, but they go have fun in somebody else's town.
That's right.
They go eat there, they go hang out there, they spend all their money, all their resources. And what you do is you building the economy of those other people's towns, and you're employing their children.
Yeah.
Because while those communities grow, they hire those kids in the summertime, they hire those kids year round, they hire this person, they hire that person. You creating jobs for other people's community while you are defunding your own community, right? And so we have to figure out a way, and it's easier said than done,
Yeah.
figure out a way to create wealth and opportunity in our neighborhood without running the people who live here out.
Yeah.
And it's not easy, because we in a system that's designed to create that contradiction. And so we have to figure out how to make it work for our folks. And it takes very smart and committed people and courageous people, by the way, to challenge this thing and say, look, if this is going to happen, we need this, right? And so I can fight for people to have a minority co-developer on all projects that get tax abatements. What I can't create is the minority co-developer, right? I can fight for a company to say you got to hire 20 Newarkers to be, on his job site as electrical engineers. What I can't do is make the electrical engineers,
Yeah.
That's
right? I can say, oh, you have to make sure you have retail for all local and black businesses in this area. But I can't create the local and black businesses, right? All I can do is fight for you to have the space.
Yeah.
You got to do the rest.
Yeah.
And the disconnect is, even if I yell and scream to the top of my lungs and say, this is what we need, this is what we need, I can't show up to the party and plan the party and pass out the flyers and be the DJ and dance on the floor and be the security guard and be the caterer at the same time.
But they expect you to.
Yeah, somebody got to do something, right? Somebody got to do something. Somebody got to cook some food, be a security guard, be a DJ. I can't do it all, man. I can get you the venue,
Yeah.
but the rest is up to you.
Together we can get
I can get you the venue, you got to do the rest.
Yeah.
And that's really what it is. You can't give these people excuses to say, we're looking for the people, we can't find them. Well, I'm gonna give you a list. That's why we had those men's meetings, because I'm trying to create those people so they won't say, I can't find those people. I can say, listen, here they go right here. I know them. Do you know them? Here they go right here. Help them out. And that's what we have to, and realize that we are not each other's enemies. We forget that. Even if we disagree, because human beings disagree. Like, I disagree with my family members, but I love them. You touch them, you're going to have a problem. You understand what I'm saying? So even if we disagree, we have to be sophisticated enough, like Congress, to disagree, but still realize the bigger picture is us, right?
Right.
That we supposed to be together, right? That's the bigger picture. Because the Congress could disagree. Democrats, Republicans, they disagree till they blue in the face. Let you come there and say something, they're going to unite quick. You understand what I'm saying? So that's what we have to do. Like, even when we disagree, we have to understand that the bigger picture has to be us and our community. And we struggle with each other, but we have to understand that all of this is ours, and we have to work together to kind of preserve it and build it for our children, despite whether we disagree with different things or agree. And if we talk to each other, we realize that we agree with more than we disagree with. And we'll be able to work together around the issues that unity and struggle, as my father used to call it. He used to call it unity and struggle. We unite, struggle with each other, and unite and struggle with each other and unite. but we always keep our eye on the prize and realize who our real enemies are. You know,
And that you are
that's right.
family, and the
That's
goal
it.
is
That's
community.
That's it. The goal is
A
community.
limited community, an expanded community, and then even a global community.
Right.
But if we look at each other and say, well, who does he think he is, and who is that Jeffries? He runs around the world talking about us being
That's right.
African. We have problems being Negroes, and you want us to be African. But this is not a gloomy time.
Right.
If y'all really understood what was happening here and the pale I could feel over y'all, you almost stunned that all of this is happening.
Yes.
But this is an opportunity.
Yeah.
And the best example of trying to deal with these myriad of things is right here in Newark, Greater Newark, and here is the center of it.
Yes. That was,
Your mayor. He ain't out there somewhere else trying to show off. He's right up here with us. This should be expanded to 1,000 of us, but this is the start. Newark ain't at the bottom of all these lists now. I saw a list a couple of weeks ago. It was number one in terms of where you could get welcoming in
That's right, for immigrants.
immigrants and whatnot. So you're going to be flooded, not by people coming in from, they're coming in from Brazil. They're going to come in from, in New York, not I'm in Harlem, because, even though I'm born and
does that
raised
mean
in Newark.
gentrification?
No, it's worse than gentrification. See, gentrification has to do with white folks in relationship to people of color. It's globalization.
Oh,
When I'm in
that's another
Harlem,
word. Another
I'm in
word.
Harlem, and I go there, all the time. Even though I come to Newark or Harlem, Teaneck is perfect. 20 minutes, I'm into New York, and 20 minutes, I'm down to taking care of my family business in the greater Newark area. I see white people walking through Harlem more comfortable than they
Yes.
are in Times Square.
Yes, that's right.
And I always either try to get near them, slow down so I can listen to them, or catch up to them, and they ain't speaking English.
Oh.
You got the world coming to be a part of the world that you helped to build. And you confused. They ain't confused. Let's get in here. I see women on 7th Avenue, and then they turn down 123rd Street. It's dark down there. They walking as gleefully as they can be, holding their little bag. If they got a bag, they live in the area.
That's right.
So we have to have a larger view of this. Newark is a place of opportunity now. And thanks, he stayed the course. He'd have been through trial and tribulation. And he's still here, got a smile on his face. First time he ran, didn't have it quite together. Systems analysis wasn't there. I remember even Tucker told, gotta get the old people vote.
Uh-huh.
Raz was worried about the young people. The young people don't vote. Tucker gave him a list of here's some of the old people where you can probably do this. At least this is part of the story that I
Right, right.
And Raz lost. I came to the house. He drove up. And I said, brother, I just came to tell you, you're a winner. This ain't the end of the ball game.
Okay.
And it hasn't been.
Mm-hmm.
He done moved from boom, boom, boom to boom.
Yes.
And now he has a chance to show a model of what can happen with black leadership. Money's being attracted, institutions coming in. So this is not just a little plaything. This is real.
It's real.
So we need to see Detroit, yes. Detroit is a big example. It ain't black folks. You got to understand what was happening in Detroit. Detroit was the motor city. After World War II, when we were the dominant thing in the world, then the motor city boomed. And they allowed people to go out. You go to Detroit, they got these highways. They even got a Jeffries freeway out in Detroit.
That's the
But then you got 8 Mile. 8 Mile is 8 Mile is from here to New York. So that's Detroit. They built this magnificent city for the motor, the industry, and the new homes. Detroit has, like you go to the Weequahic area where you got homes with some land and whatnot. Detroit don't have tenements. They don't have tenements. Detroit is an after World War II city.
That's right.
So it's a whole nother thing. Newark is one of the oldest cities in America. 1666, the third oldest city in America, and it's gone through all of the technological changes and revolutions and whatnot, and now it's at the precipice of being a model of what can happen, and he's at the head of it.
Newark.
So, in New Jersey, in 10 years, the state will be majority minority. And I don't like to use those words that people use, but we can understand it when we say that, right? People of color will be the majority in the state of New Jersey.
How that happen? How that happen?
People are coming here more from all over the world. The countries that are growing the most around the world are countries of people of African descent, that are coming here to this place, and our families are growing. And in the United States, period, in the year 2020, all young people under the age of 18 will be classified as mixed or someone of color, which means that the labor market or the labor pool is going to be dominated by people of color. It's almost like, the irony of the universe, of God saying, listen, in order for things to be good, that you're going to have to deal with inequality. Because at the end of the day, in order to have the workers that you need in the places that you need them, you're going to have to train people of color, right? You're going to have to deal with that, and then we're going to have another perspective, and a kind of global perspective of what's happening, and kind of a different discussion is going to have to come about in terms of how we deal with each other, how we deal with power, with the things that are happening around here. Look, even the governor of the state of New Jersey, was elected primarily because people of color elected him.
That's right. That's right.
And most of these folks in national office, have these offices because people of color stood up, mostly African American women, for the most part, stood up and put them in office. I mean, the folks the dichotomy between the people who voted for Trump and the people who voted for Hillary is very, very, very clear and obvious and apparent, right? And that's why people keep saying the country is divided, because it's very clear who voted for Hillary Clinton. Even people who didn't want to did. African American women understood more than anybody, that regardless of what was going on, we needed to make sure we didn't get Donald Trump. Everybody else had different ideas. We were being over analytical. We had this, we had that, but we debated a million times. Black women said, "I don't care what you're talking about. I'm voting for Hillary Clinton because that crazy man gonna be the president." And they did that. And the largest electorate that was out there for Hillary was African American women. And then black men came behind that. Not as much as them because they were way advanced than us, and then Latinos and everybody else followed that. But almost 50% of white women and half of white men voted for Donald Trump, right? So that means that there is a split there. There's a serious split in thinking in this country, and it's clear. And I'm not making that up. That's what the data, that's what the facts bear out. And maybe we should take our lead. And understand, because the women in our family, in our communities, number one instinct is to protect their family.
Yes.
Right?
Sure.
Protect their family.
Right.
And because they're trying to protect their family, I don't care what none of y'all people talking about.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, listen, we doing this. I don't care what you say about this person, that person. This is what I'm doing.
Yeah, and we're going to educate them.
Right.
Yeah.
Our women particularly said their children are going to have a strong education. I am what I am, my brother, my nephews and whatnot, because there's somebody, Leonard Jeffries, who said our people are going to deal with education. And they were close friends of Raz's grandparents. They even had an organization called the Students something. They were interested in education. They told us we were going to be. I grew up on 14th Street in Newark, New Jersey. My mother's family lived on 13th Street in the Roseville area. My father's family lived on 12th Street. It was like a village. Of the 100 kids I grew up with, 90 of us made it.
Wow.
90 of us made it. And we were living with white folks, but they had something for us. They organized to send us away to camp. They organized, and 15 of us, we knocking on the doors every Sunday, walking down to that church down on the corner near Orange Street and 14th, Mount Sinai Baptist Church. And they wasn't worried about us getting those Sunday school lessons. They was worried about us getting consciousness and an understanding and appreciation. There was a woman there, Mrs. Smith, who taught the Sunday school. 50 years of Mrs. Smith came to honor her at the Brick Church in East Orange. For 50 years, her role was to put her loving hands on our hearts and our minds to help us grow. We had that, man, she ain't gonna be in nobody's history book, but I'll tell you, there was 1,000 of us there to say that she did what she did and we felt it. Just as Dr. Clark, one of our greatest historians, could say, I had 3 deities in my life. My grandmother, my mother, and my 5th grade school teacher, Eveline Taylor.
All right.
They believed in his genius. He didn't have nothing, he didn't have any of the schools that Newark got. He's the son of a sharecropper. And he became a giant who left 20,000 books that they took from his house and sent them down to the Woodruff Library, which is the center of that campus down there. They got 5 or 6 black institutions. It's sacred ground.
Yes.
Morehouse, Spelman, Morris Brown, Theological Seminary, Clark Atlanta. Our people made a way out of no way, and the women's right there.
That's right. That's right.
That's why his mother's so significant. She's been fighting for him and hers and us. Poor Sister Frederica Bay would always say, I got to call her Mina. She ain't talking about her Mina. She's talking about his Mina. For some advice or some help. Or if there's a fight, she's going to be out there. But the women in support of the Million Man March did what Minister Farrakhan suggested. Go home to your community. They met at somebody's house. They decided to put something together. They eventually got almost $15 million worth of property in Newark.
Oh, man.
And they got messed over.
Yes,
Because the system says it can't be in the hands of black folk, and certainly not black folk that have a relationship with Minister Farrakhan. And then they got the Jeffries in the middle of it. My wife helped develop the curriculum for the charter school. I was on the board making sure things got straight. She did everything right. She had professionals around her. It took 5 years studying what she had done and came with a report this big. We've been studying your thing over years, and there's no evidence that you have been misusing and messing with money. But there was somebody inside that was feeding them the mess. We don't want to discuss personal cases, but I'm saying you can be successful. She knew real estate. She encouraged us. There was nothing vicious about it. You never heard her say nothing negative about the opposing group, but she knew we had to get together as a family and educate our children. And whenever there was a big opportunity, she called us in and said, do you think we should do it? I said, go get it. You know, she got the mansion over there on Lincoln, and then, no, Lincoln. And then she got another building on the other side that the NAACP had an office in. So she had 2 buildings. Normal persons, that would have been enough. They took that one mansion and they did a fantastic thing. I remember you were there at one time when you were running and we were raising money for you. And then she got the other mansion. That should have been enough. But when she saw the opportunity downtown, she said, do we just stop up at Lincoln Park, or do we try to come down to the big leagues in Washington Park? And the building that they gave her, and see, key that Raz and his father and others could do. Newark is an ethnic city. It's a microcosm of America's ethnicity, going back to Robert Treat and the Lenni Lenape Indians and whatnot. And then all the various revolutions that the nation went through. Newark has gone through the Industrial Revolution at one point. And Newark was able to grab land outside of Newark, what they call it, the lakes, the reservoirs. Reservoir. That was one of the biggest things. They got that to serve the Newark population.
Right.
But Newark did not want to be tied in to a whole lot of communities around it, because Newark was a prosperous, developing area. So they didn't want to be hooked up with no Bloomfield, no Belleville, no Montclair, no South Orange, no East Orange and Newark. So they let those spun off as cities and townships, but that's all Newark. That's the outreach of Newark. And so Raz operates, he ain't gonna stop at the border of East Orange and say, well, that's it. He knows. And so we have a microcosm of what Black America has done to make itself significant in this whole area. And you need to claim the whole thing. You even go into Union County and into Elizabeth and Hillside or whatever. We have a chance to show an urban transformation in which black people can fight to have a piece of it. And when they told her at the 3-building complex with that large church there and the community center and then a school,
Right.
well, that was perfect. And we said, go for it. And she was able to do it. I wish we had prevailed.
Oh, man.
I wish we could have pulled it, because whether Raz is going to tell you this or not, Newark is targeted to be one of the most significant urban graduate education centers in this nation. And it's all right down there around Washington Park. And there we were, right there.
Right.
I just prayed and I hope that let us stay right in this spot with all these institutions coming. We could prepare the black students to go in. You could take the ones coming out of Essex County and push them into a higher level. We could prepare them to get into Rutgers Law. In other words, but Newark is going to be, whether you like it or not,
Right.
one of the leading urban campuses in these United States. And they had at Orange Street there. You had what, business building.
Right.
It wasn't supposed to be Rutgers Business School. It is Rutgers Business School now.
Right.
Then you got the library, one of the most significant libraries in America for a medium small town like we are. Then next to it, you have a model American skyscraper, the American Insurance Company,
Yeah.
looking like a little Empire State Building with the little tower and whatnot.
Right.
For years it was empty. It ain't empty now.
That's right.
It is the Rutgers Law School or something of that nature. And then when they were remodeling it, they looked over at Frederica's building. And they said, what is that?
Oh, boy.
And since we got to have remodel and we need to have shots from Frederica's building to redo the American Insurance Company building, when they got in there, they said, what is this? A cathedral in the front? You have a fellowship hall. You got a bowling alley. At the bottom, you got a children's school.
Yeah, they want that.
And then you got a whole other building there with a gym upstairs.
What?
And that would have been so much of a key for us to prepare our students for these the law schools and all that stuff that's around it. We could have used Frederica's thing to prepare black youngsters for that. So that was my dream, because I'm thinking ahead, et
Yes,
cetera.
exactly.
But that didn't happen. But we still, the best thing we got is Raz.
That's right.
You could talk about some imports, like the one that says, I got my PhD
Oh,
from Stanford and Yale, but I got my real degree from selling, keeping the kids off the street and buying them some hot dogs in the project, Brick City. Newark ain't no damn Brick City.
right. What?
Newark is not a Brick City. The real Newark was a communities. Down Neck was a community. Polish people lived down there with black folk. Pennington Court was not Brick City. Pennington Court was a garden apartment, 3 stories. That's where Tuck and them came out. Riverview Court. That's where I spent 2 or 3 years of my formative life, with my cousin taking me every day on the 34 bus from Riverview Court all the way to Roseville Avenue and dropping us off, and we walked down to Sussex Avenue, and then she went on to vocational. And then coming back, she met us at Roseville Avenue, and then got on that 34, and we went all the way down to Riverview Court. So Newark was these garden apartments. Brick City was when they were jamming up the population. They didn't want us going out into the suburbs or even over the mountains, going out in Essexville, and they started building up 10, 15, 20-story buildings, stacking black people.
The project?
That was the Brick City disaster.
Yeah.
No, Newark had projects. Riverview Court was built in 1946. It was a project. our family, three sections of our family went down there because there were black people who fought in the war. My Uncle Tommy fought in the war. John Bench's father fought in the war. And so they were able to get apartments at Riverview Court. But they didn't get them in the central area. They got the periphery buildings around. They got number 5 and number 9 and number 11. So for 2 years, I grew up in the projects. It was the greatest thing that we could have because we could go down to the freight Chapel Hill where they had the cars, and we could open the door, and there was some melons, honey melons, and all kinds of other stuff. And so you could just take it. And Briar's ice cream was just over on the other side, and they got rid of these ice creams, and so there was ice cream still left.
Right.
You know, and then next to Briar's was unfortunately Farmer's Feed, and so the nasty fertilizer smell was hooked up with the ice cream, and then next to it was Hayes Park East. And we were not allowed to go into Hayes Park East except on a Thursday. That's why I never learned to swim.
What?
Because when the black kids got there was no room for us to do anything but paddle around. You couldn't do no swimming. Why? Newark was segregated.
That's right.
Most people, we survived that type of segregation and carved out our niche. And then we survived in terms of the leadership. Newark was controlled by the Irish.
Yeah.
Kerry, the mayor, what was it? Mayor Kerry or something like that. Irish had
Kelly?
control.
What year was that?
Into the 50s.
Carlin.
Artemisia, Mayor Carlin. Mayor
That's
Carlin.
it. That's
Yes,
it.
I won the Mayor Carlin Award. There's a
B.O.P.
picture of me. I won the mayor, the
That's
year
it.
of the youth. But there's an ethnic thing in Newark that has been going on. We're in the middle of it now. You need to understand it. The Italians have moved out, but other Catholics have moved in.
Coming
Did
back.
you hear what I said? Catholics.
Coming back.
One of the greatest cathedrals in America, sitting right there across from Badger Park.
Right.
Right.
It's
Right.
like number 3 in America.
Right.
And it's there because there's a heavy Polish Catholic population. There was a heavy Italian population. Now the various Latino populations are there as Catholics. Puerto Ricans, and then Puerto Ricans and Dominicans, not the same people. They look like they're the same, just like the Jamaicans and the Trinidadians ain't the same. They look like the same. They don't understand they're the same. How did you? I'm from Trini. Who the hell gets some shit that you from a little island? You got the world to deal with. But the Trinidadians look down on the
that's
Tubagonians.
right.
That's the people from Tobago. Wade Noble said it best. African people everywhere suffer greatly from a shattered consciousness and a fractured identity.
Well,
And if we're going to go somewhere, is to see, even though we come from different islands, speak different languages, etc., we are the chosen people of the planet.
I believe
And
that.
we've been through hell to prove our chosenness. And Newark is a model example. And we got to pray that this brother eats right, but you know, most of us eat wrong.
Yes.
I mean, I grew up eating wrong because my mother said you're going to get educated. My father said you're going to enjoy life. So every night he worked like hard. He had 2 jobs, and he didn't really have to work because the woman that raised him, Aunt Bessie, on 12th Street, she had a tailor shop, and so we never knew that we were not going to be without. We had jobs, we had businesses, and so, but my father knew that Aunt Bessie wasn't giving him the top wage, so he had another job on the side, and he could regulate his time. Every night he came home with ice cream. And the best ice cream was Luffel's custard
Oh my
that they got on Irving Turner Boulevard. Back in the day, it was
Not Briars? Not Briars?
No, not Briars. Eventually, Briars was a part of the mix. See, Newark was an industrial town. It was a brewery town.
That's right.
I got the first job
What? 27
of,
breweries.
in the brewery industry. I'm talking about 1950. I went to college. I went to Lafayette College when I graduated from Badger. I went to Lafayette. And so, knowing that Newark had all these breweries, I called up Kruger and said, I'm looking for a job. And they said, well, who are you? What are you? I said, I'm a college student, and I'll be home for the summer. So I sounded a little white. I didn't even put any blah, 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 blah,
Learn how
blah.
to-
And so they hired me.
King English.
And when I went,
King English.
I went on West Kenny, and to get to my job, these white women, since I said, Lafayette College, they hired me. But they wasn't supposed to hire me.
Mm.
Because there wasn't no black people in this heavy brewery industry that we had. Rheingold, Valentine's, and all the rest. We weren't being hired in those. I got in there by mistake. And they worked the mistake out because they said, look, we got unions. 30 days and you get fired and then you get hired again.
Right.
And so that's what they did. They hired me. They knew I couldn't be there more than 30 days. But since I was committed and whatnot, they hired me. Again, we helped to break into the brewery industry. But of course, I got sick because we don't have no sense. I'm in this brewery, and anywhere along the line, you can take off some beer, and you can. My job was supposed to be watching, and if I see some cigarettes or some roaches in a bottle, I'm supposed to snatch it off. And they said, "Do not stop the line. If you don't get it, it's gonna go to. It's gonna be sanitized roaches and cigarettes going to the line." But then everybody drinks beer, and I was not a beer drinker, and so I got sick. Then I went down to our doctor, Reverend Dr. Darden, who was on High Street, and he said, "What's going on?" I said, I feel kind of bad. And he said, "Well, what are you doing different?" I said, "I finished my college year, and I'm at the brewery." He said, "Well, are you drinking the beer?" I said, "Yeah, you got to drink it. That's what this is all about. You're in the brewery industry."
Yeah.
So he said, "That's what's wrong with you, black ass." So I had to bring some bottles of juice and stick it in the container with all this beer in it. But the ethnic part of the thing is what I'm talking about. Ethnic groups take care of ethnic groups. And the Italians take care of Italians, the Poles take, the Irish take care of the Irish. And politically, they support each other. And when the breakthrough came with the Committee to Unify Newark and all that stuff, we opened up this. But the Latinos are coming. So Rad's got to do whatever he can do in the period he has, because the next wave out of the movement is going to be Latinos.
Yeah,
Okay?
that's right.
And they're going to say, "It's our turn.
Yeah.
We supported you when it was against this and that." So
That's right.
you have to see this ethnic dynamic. But it ain't something to be afraid of. It's something to appreciate.
Yeah.
But you have to get your piece of the pie. Now, they just put out a wealth thing. The biggest thing for wealth for black folk nationally is a house. It's housing. Raz and them sent out with Frederica and them something that there's 2,000 houses available in Newark that's on the list of whatever. We should have had enough of a plan together with people with money to put a fund together to buy these houses. The house that my family put in my name in 1967. Family put the 329 New Street in my name because they knew since I had a trajectory of going high and doing somebody, that I would keep the house in the family. That house is still in the family. I've had to refi, I'm in a struggle now with the mortgage company, but I ain't letting it go. The family gave it to me to save it for this community, for these generation things.
Right.
The Italians and the Irish survived in these 3-story buildings that were built at the turn of the century, 1900s and thereafter, and they worked out well for them. You had a 5-room first floor, you had a 5.5-room second floor, you had an attic, and with the Italians you fixed, and the Poles you fixed up the basement. They made those houses in Newark work for them. Because you could take several members of your family coming from here, if their family lost their job or something, they'd have a place to go. We always kept the upstairs for people who we knew was coming. My cousin Dolores, they lived on 14th Street next to me, Sonny Catino, and I would. The question was who was going to pop out of the room first, Sonny and myself. I kicked out first, but it was good swimming around in there. I didn't want to come out. I was having a good time, but I kicked out January 19th. Sonny kicked out on January 26th. We lived next to each other, coming up from Georgia. Eventually, they moved up. They moved over 14th Street and up the corner, Sussex Avenue, and 17th Street. In the same type of house, but it was in better condition. And Dolores said, whenever my mother took down the kitchen table, we knew family was coming up from south or coming from somewhere. We was going to share that space with some members of the family.
Right.
So Newark's housing worked for us just like it worked for the immigrants.
So what do we need to take away tonight so that we can we start moving forward to being a part of, coming back to our greatness, continue to own up our cities, stop being moved? What do we need to take away now that we need to all walk out of here and do? One simple task that helps to build our community for us. Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Dr. Jeffries?
I think ultimately you have to be a part of an organization. That's number one. and you have to be connected to a group of people, whether it's your block organization or any other organization. If an organization doesn't exist, you should be a part of one, or you should create one yourself. I mean, Stokely Carmichael used to say all the time, organize, organize, organize.
That's
And
it.
be in an organization, that's key. You can't get anything done out here alone. You know, that's number one. Number two, you have to pay attention. Everybody always say stay woke, and I always add stay informed, because being woke is just a state of consciousness, right? You can be awoke and not know what's going on, right? You have to be awoke means you know you see something happening, but you're not clear on what's happening. And a lot of times we awoke, we're just not clear. And so it's important for us to be informed. And so I debate with people all the time on social media and every place else, because they have these ideas. They read 2 books and now they're woke, right? And if they're lucky, they read 4. And now they awoke and they out here, you know, going back and forth, but they're not informed. And so it's important to be informed, not just awoke, right? You have to be informed and engaged in what's happening in your city, and city government, and county government, and state government, and everything else that's going on around you, and begin to effectuate that, and stop, you know. And we always have, and we also have to stop allowing things to happen to us, and begin to have the idea that things are going to happen because of us. Like, we always have this idea that something is going to happen to me. Like, what's going to happen when they do this? When they, all my life I'm trying to figure out who they is, because they have done everything, right? When they do this, or that's going to happen, or they going to do this, or they going to do that. Well, what are you going to do when they are doing that, right? So, I mean, all these people from Newark got a whole bunch of tough guys. They're just not tough at all, right? Because they're always complaining about something that's getting ready to happen to them that they have no control over. I've made a decision a long time ago in my life that I'm not going to leave a legacy of complaining and being the victim of what other people have done, right? At some point, you have to build something, create something, do something, right? And that's what I would say. You leave out of here, you purchase what you can purchase, you buy what you can buy, you get it into a co-op if you have to, but do what's necessary to get these things in your community, to own and affect political power. You need to affect political power, and you need to build economic power. You know, cooperative power, you have to do it, and you have to engage politically. And there's a lot of people who say, well, I'm not into politics. Well, politics is into you. It doesn't make any sense if you don't get engaged in it. You have to. You have to be engaged in it. And there's no, like, I'm going to boycott this or boycott. No, you can't boycott nothing. They coming. And like, be clear on the difference between electoral politics and community politics, or politics, period, right? Electoral politics is not the only form of politics or political engagement. It's just one. It's just one form. And there's a whole bunch of other ways to be engaged politically. There are people who are in this state who have no elected office, but have more power and authority than people who are in elected office, right? Because they've galvanized resources, money, people, organizations, so they affect what happens politically in the state and in these counties. But they don't hold one office. They don't hold one office, and they don't want to, right? But they want to affect who goes into these offices and what happens when those people get in those offices. And that's when you have to become more sophisticated like that. Last thing is, like, my dad used to say, we get together on 10 things, and we disagree on number 2 and number 5, and the whole thing falls apart. Here's a 10-point plan we agree with, and number 2 and number 5 we argue. Forget about the other 8 things we agree on. The 2 things we disagree on drives a wedge in it, and we all down the street talking about each other terribly, plotting to tear each other apart, despite the 8 other things that we can get together, right? And which is ridiculous. So we have to not do that and be more committed to building. I said the last thing, but really, what's most important to me, I mean, as I gain in this political office, it made me understand that we have learned how to, all these years, play an effective defense. We know we have defense we got defense down pat, right? What we don't have is offense. And so the reason that we don't have offense is because the quarterback is arguing with the running back and is arguing with the wide receiver. Right? You can't throw the ball and then run down the field and catch it yourself. You can't do that, right? So at the end of the day, we have to develop. So we get so good at, we want to play defense so bad, when we get the ball, we give it back just so we can play defense, right? So meaning we'll have gained ground, And because the fact that you can look at these cities where we've gained ground, and because we can't come together and march the ball down the field, we fight each other and we give the ball back to them,
That's right.
and then we organize. Now we together again,
Yeah.
fighting these people because we can point the finger at them and play defense again. We have to become more sophisticated than that, y'all, and begin to develop some offensive plays here, and march the ball down the field. And understand that even when you march it down the field, you might fumble sometimes. You might throw an interception here and there, right? You might turn the ball over here and there. But the object is to get the ball down to the other side of the field.
Right.
By any means
By any
necessary.
means necessary, man. That's the objective. And
That's right.
it's been hard for us to see that. And it's almost frustrating that happens, right? That we give the ball away. You know, it's almost like, when you see a quarterback throw it, they just do it right to him. Yes, you say, you just threw the ball. Why you give him the ball? You just threw the ball away. And you're almost like, wow, it's just so frustrating. And I've seen that happen so many different times. It's hard,
Very.
right?
Well-
That's why they call it struggle, right?
Yes, sir.
And Frederick Douglass said it best,
Yes, sir.
if there is no struggle, there's no progress.
It is
That's a
not.
person who fought his way out of slavery, and then he envisioned a plan of what to do to destroy slavery. So in my little bag there, I have Amos Wilson, Blueprint for Black Power.
Yes.
You gotta have a plan. If you don't have a plan, you can have a defense, but in order to get the ball across the goal line, you got to have some plans.
Yes, you do.
And so you have a chance,
Strategy.
a strategy, and put something together in Newark. You gotta own something. Well, I'd rather buy a house up there in the mountains of Maplewood, but you ain't ready for Maplewood now. Get something in the Clinton Hill section. Raz was raised in the Clinton Hill section. They had some nice homes over there
Yes.
and whatnot. So, in fact, the house that they're in is part of a historic house. It's historic because his family's there, but it's historic in terms of the transition of Newark, that they built those nice houses off of Clinton Avenue. So, you're not going to be able to go where the house costs $500,000. Okay?
Go down.
My grandfather's
Go down.
house,
Go down.
which they bought for $2,500 in 1947.
That's right.
Powhatan Indian great-grandfather left a legacy out of Virginia. He had a blacksmith shop, he had this, he had that. But the most important thing, they said he didn't die right. That was the family tale. Didn't die right was that he wasn't a Christian. Before he had his Native American name, but he did the right thing by leaving a will, and that everybody up to 21 would get a couple $1,000s. And so when my grandfather got the couple $1,000, they bought that house on New Street, $2,500. The house is now worth $250,000,
Right.
and it ain't going that way down,
That's
it's
right.
going up.
That's right.
And so even though Newark is in trouble, there are people buying up Newark property because they know what they're going to do with it. You're not building all these skyscrapers and all these other buildings just to be in the shadow of some poor housing. These houses can be rehabilitated. In fact, what my cousin did, Patty, when they wanted to put up the International Medical Center, the community said, no, we need some homes in this area. These old houses need to, so they actually put up 12 new houses. It was worked out with the university. And so around Norfolk and New Street, you have these one-family, two-family houses. Now they're worth $400,000. Our little wooden house across the street is stabilized at $250,000. So there's a financial thing that you have to be aware about. You have to be aware of, and you can't do it yourself. So you need to form your family groups, your community groups, your brotherhoods and churches. Every church should have a credit union. You can't have a church with 2,000, 5,000 people and they got a credit union because they can help to fund the building projects and whatnot. But the society goes up with the finances and then there's a period of downturn and then, so brothers and sisters, we've been up for the last, since Barack Obama. It's going down now. Okay, there's going to be a period, we don't know, it's going to be a short drop and then a big drop. But that's what they're talking about on the TV now. 500, 600 points today, the stock market dropped. The other day it was 500 or 600, almost 800. And with this crazy man talking all his mess.
That's right.
But no matter what happens, we got to stay the course. We got to be there. We got to own some property. We got to have support some businesses. We got to take care of our children. and you do it by Africanizing your lives. Or I say, don't be going into that African stuff, Dr. You ain't gonna get me to be wearing that. This is my protest. In other words, I got my suits. In fact, I just took 4 suits, tweed jackets and whatnot, and put them upstairs, to put them up in storage. I got those suits. Well, one is the Mugabe suit. When we were going to meet, take Coretta Scott King to Zimbabwe, you had to have some wears. I had to get something dark, and I had to get some suit. In other words, you don't be just going around wearing this in Zimbabwe, especially if there's a state dinner. But when I was in the manpower training program down in Newark, my mother had said in 1967 when I came back from my PhD research, and I was selling a piece of art every month. Mothers can hurt you. Raz's mother just look at you and it can't be a hurt. My mother say the word. And she said, did you ever consider getting a job? She's selling a piece of art every month so you can finish up this. And that hurt me. Because she knew I worked. I worked at 14. There was a factory across the street, a knitting mill on 4th Street. So she knew I worked. But what she did was, since I was going to do what I was going to do, she went and got me a job at the Manpower Training Center down here. And I was in charge of counseling and English education. A lot of young and middle-aged men would try to get into the white folks thing of tool and die. And so we had one factory which was just for that, training these hundreds of us. And that actually was at the time that the rebellion took place, because I was going back to New York because I was living there. I was at Penn Station, told my brother I'm getting back to go. He said, how are you going to go back? To go back to where? I said, well, I got to go home. He said, no, you don't. You need to go up on Springfield Avenue. All shit is busting out in there. So,
you know what? I appreciate all that you're giving us, Dr. J. And I know the mayor has got to.
he should have long been gone. You should have
signaling
stopped.
us.
You late.
But before,
to go. You should have left.
before we leave here, I need, because you know I do this every month, first Friday, show a different documentary about something else that's going on that we need to be informed about, we need to be moved on.
Right.
And Dr. J, no, I'll be like, come on, we got to talk about this. I need to hear from you, because when you say it out loud, you have now put it out there, that means what you're going to do. So now our mayor has told us what we need to do. Dr. Jeffries has told us things that have happened prior to and what we continue to need and we need to work on. I need to know, between now and next month, what do you plan to do to make sure our communities and make sure they continue to grow, and the gentrification is not pushing us out, but we're the ones that's creating it. We're making this town work. We got this man here working for us, protecting us, like he said. Okay, what do we want? What you have to speak right now and tell me what you're going to do over the next 30 days to make sure there's more of your community when you're gone. There's more for your family when you're gone. There's more things going to go on. What are you going to start doing now so that you can create these legacies?
Yeah, that's wonderful. See how women control
Yes.
things and whatnot.
Yes.
But the main man is right here. Now, just being in his presence here, across from the City Hall, in the Source of Knowledge Community Center, should have your head spinning and thinking what you can do to build on this. But we can't keep him here all night. We need to let him say some few words, and then let him continue, because he have 2 or 3 other spots tonight, and then get ready in the morning at 7 o'clock for something else.
Well, how you find out about these properties?
You mean properties you want to purchase? You could come to property management at City Hall, or or go out on the street and look for them. And when you go out there like other people do and speculate, they either go to auctions, or they come and get the lists that become available, or they see a property and they buy it from the private person. So you just have to
To
be.
the Hall of Records.
To the Hall of
out
Records,
there,
that's right.
And find out who owns that property.
She knows
Get
more
their-
than anything.
Who owns that property? You get
she
their
doing it.
address.
She doing
you
it.
write them a letter, because I know plenty of us, and we gotta tell the people we know, don't buy, don't sell. Okay, but you call you know there's people, the properties,
it.
the
They own
names.
this
You
building.
get their address and write them a letter. I see your property. I like that property. I want to develop in that neighborhood. Are you willing to sell?
Right.
All right, I've done
The first
that
example,
much.
do y'all lease this building or do you own it?
Oh, we
Yeah,
own this
That's
building.
right, that's right.
We own
that's
this.
right.
I've done that much, and I've come
I knew
to
that.
a
I just wanted
dead
you to say
end,
it.
and I'm like, no one. It's just like at this point,
But you can't.
it
you
tells
can't,
you that this person
what I want
that's
to
the
hear you
address.
say is not that I done. You should have a we in it.
We,
In other
well,
words,
we
you
have
pull
done
together
this.
some
We
significant
have done
others,
this.
Gotta get
and you got
skip
that
traces.
we.
You gotta find a person.
Yeah, that's it. You gotta keep trying.
How you find a person and say that's the
You gotta
address?
get skip traces.
You gotta get. So what? They
These
keep telling
ladies
us
doing
all
it all
kinds
the
of
time.
stuff.
Oh.
They gonna
And when they
keep. Don't
want
they
something,
keep
they come
writing your
over there.
house? Don't. How many people haven't received a letter in their neighborhood? I know I received letters. People calling me up. I'd like the way your neighborhood look. We buying property in your neighborhood. We want to buy your house. No, it's not for sale. People came here to this building. Hey, we want that
That's right,
building.
that's right, that's
you,
right.
We want to. You wanted
That's
to
right.
sell? No. Hey, you know what y'all need to fix up that building? You need some money? We want to buy your building.
Right.
Y'all want to sell? No.
No.
Hey, you know what? We want to buy the air rights on your building.
Oh,
Y'all want to
air
sell? They call us all the time.
Yeah.
Why? Because they want it.
Yeah.
It's something value. What you have in
And
your
they,
home
and they
is
in the heart of
valuable.
what's getting ready to happen down
Right.
here.
Yeah.
That's
Your
right.
families, your
Hold on.
neighbors.
Hold
they
the
get
line.
the letters. Tell them, don't sell.
Hold the line.
Don't sell.
Mm.
Figure out, and then if they have a hardship, say we get together and try and figure out to save your home. Because we save your home, then we save our neighbor's home, and the next one, and we now save our community. Jay Morrison.
So you have to have a plan,
Yes.
and that plan does not just involve you. You're not going anywhere singly. You have to go collectively. That's the African value system: communal, cooperative, and collective. And so this is a start. This is a big beginning. I'm glad to see that the film is so heavy,
Yes.
but it's too heavy.
Mm.
It's too heavy. And then they could make a heavy one about Newark, but they ain't gonna show you no 25-story buildings that they built to stack the working class and the poor. And it wasn't just Stellar Homes or Wright Homes. They built them for the Italians in the Columbus homes.
Right.
And they was tied up, packed up there in Aqueduct Alley, because I had to go to Barrington and Aqueduct and smell all that stuff going down. I couldn't go to McKinley because we went there for 6 months. They stuffed the Columbus homes in a tight a pattern as anywhere in the urban areas. Wasn't even that tight in St. Louis and other places. St. Louis began to blow them up. The Taylor homes built in Chicago is the longest housing project, blocking black people from leaping over Chicago's borders and going out into the suburbs. All it was a plan. It was a master plan. Now we have to come up with our plan to counteract it and to make it work. And when you have the mayor of a town that's on the books as going somewhere, then you don't know how blessed you all are. If you had some serious questions, I'd ask you to entertain him, but I know you ain't got no serious questions. We need to let him go. Oh,
I
okay.
just have a comment. You alluded earlier about how Latino communities emerging politically and stuff. I'm from the North Ward.
Yes.
Still live in North Ward, which has now become the center. I know the mayor is aware of this. I'm just saying that in terms of we got South, West, pretty much still solidly one demographics politically. Well, I'm saying pretty much. North, East, trying. Central, changing tremendously. I live on 8th Avenue, a lot of construction, I mean, a lot of new development, I guess when I walk Halsey Street, walked Raymond Boulevard, and since when when the lines were redrawn, redistricting, they annexed a lot of the north and made it part of Central.
Right.
So, knowing that population changing, demographics changing, seeing what people from the north did in the east to make sure that their person got in, Central, like I do, I try to still encourage people in the Central to stay politically active so that it doesn't, the demographics don't shift tremendously to make the central vote more one way than the other. I'm there. I see it. I know you know the demographics how to change. I'm saying that's something I'm still, aware of. I'm always making sure that, hey, come on, we gotta still new building come here. Let's register some more people. Still try to we can still have involvement because I'm right across the road from Harrison. I see and the North Ward. I mean, the Central Ward. You walk Halsey Street and looks just like how Tribeca and Soho did. So I'm just saying. That's what I do. I still try to make sure that we keep the blocks, the voting blocks there actively, and just watching the shift in the demographics and the people that are going there. So that's the only comment I had to make. In the Central Ward, I don't know the exact numbers. So I don't know, but Central Ward is on the verge of changing.
Central Ward is changing.
Yeah.
Because there's more people coming into the Central Ward from outside of the city and from different parts of the city at the same time, which is why inclusionary zoning is important to make sure you create affordability in those areas as well. But I mean, people's consciousness determine what they're going to do, right? And not necessarily their nationality. It's important for us to make sure that people are aware and are conscious of what's happening, and that they have information, and that they know. There's always a lot of talk about Latinos, and it's growing in this city. But Latinos are Africans.
Yeah,
At the end of the day. You don't know. Most of us don't know you're African.
They don't know.
Well, most of you don't know you're African. So at the end of the day, that's something that we got to be clear on. And we all in the Americas, in this side of the world now, because of act of history. It's important for us to we didn't ask them to be here, but we are. And so it's the thing that I'm saying is that we have to have two things: self-determination and democracy, right? Meaning that because we here, we deserve what everybody else got. And we ought to fight for what everybody else got because we here. Yeah. If they didn't want us here, they shouldn't have brought us here.
That's right.
And so because we are here, we deserve what everybody else is getting.
That's
and
right.
And we should fight for that.
Yeah.
And self-determination is like we need to own and define and determine who we are for ourselves.
Right.
We need to own our own stuff.
Right.
And like they were telling us, this building belongs to them, right? They could have continued to lease and then complain when people came in here and raised their rent and told them they had to go. But they were wise enough to understand that. Listen, I'm going to own this, and when people come around, they ain't going to be able to tell me to go because it's mine.
Yeah.
Right? And we have to. That's self-determination, right? And that's what we have to understand. That we have to have some level of self-determination. That if we want people to teach us something, we have to teach ourselves, right? If we want to own something, we got to buy it.
That's it.
And we have to do it collectively. If we want to name ourselves something, we have to name it. We have a right to wear, do, speak, pray to anybody we want to. That's self-determination. We have a right to do that.
Right.
And we have to be self-determining. But sometimes we throw out one for the other. You got these people who, so heavy on the democracy part of it, or American democracy, that they forego self-determination. They say, oh, you wrong for these things, or people who are so involved in I'm going to do this myself that they don't think is wise to fight for the stuff that everybody else has. As a matter of fact, we can't absolve any of that. We have to have it all. We have to say we want democracy too. If they passing stuff out to people, don't skip my house.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? I live here too. I want it just like everybody else. But I have the right to say I don't want it.
Right.
That's what self-determination is. I also have the right to say, I don't want that. Thank you, but no thank you. I'll take this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And we have to just be smart enough to be able to figure that out, man. Our worst enemy is internal.
Yes.
Nobody can do anything to us unless we allow them to. And that's it. That's why I don't go with the they going to do this, the they going to do that. They do that to you because you allow them to. Internal. I mean, all of the revolutions around the world were destroyed and disturbed by those very same people. Maurice Bishop was overthrown by people from Grenada, not
his own people.
Yeah, people. Patrice Lumumba, Kwame Nkrumah,
And Sankara.
Thomas Sankara. All these people, internationally. That's right, brother. That's right. Were overthrown and killed by people who looked like them, spoke their own language, and supposedly thought what they thought, right? And when they threw Maurice Bishop, Ronald Reagan invaded Grenada immediately after, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, that's why we always have to be sophisticated enough to understand who our real enemies are.
That's it. Yes. True.
Well, we're gonna let the mayor,
We want to take a
exit.
group
One
picture.
question.
You got a question?
One question.
Let's give him a round of applause. Sit there and take it out of your time. Now and speak with us. You know,
I just have one quick question. When you're buying a house that's in the city, is it a limit if you want to buy the land? Say if you wanted to buy 4 or 5 houses.
You buy what you want to buy.
You can buy.
You buy whatever you have the capacity to buy.
Okay.
so, and we got to think, income tax is coming. You get an income tax check, your brother get an income tax check, your cousin get an income tax check.
Ooh, that money.
Put all that money together and buy all it together and buy one.
That's the only way we're gonna do
Come
it.
on, we buy one block at a time, one house at a time.
So when you see these people buying multiple things, so they buying public and private property. So what they do is they amass the property together. So it'll be 2 lots, 2 of them be city owned, one will be private owned, other one is here. So they try to get the city owned property, and they find a guy who owns this property. They buy it from him, and they buy these 2, and so they bring those properties together. And what happened is 20, 30 years ago, people were selling property in the city for very cheap.
Yeah.
And these people land banked it personally. So they sat on that property for 15, 20 years. And now at times like this, they're developing it or selling that property, and they're making money off of it because they land banked it, right? So we have legislation in the state now that's trying to make the city a land bank so we can accumulate the property ourselves. So we can begin to purchase, do the same thing the private folks are doing, saying these are already city owned, this is owned by the housing authority. These 3 are privately owned, let's buy these 3. Then we land bank this property. Then we can begin to do with that mass of property what we want with it, as opposed to being at the behest of individuals who come in with a bag of money, right? Saying I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna do this. So if the city, until Detroit is in a better position than anybody, because they own most of that land that's vacant and abandoned. The city of Detroit owns most of that property, so they had a better position, and they have a land bank, so they land bank most of that stuff, and they can basically be creative about what happens in their town. The city of Newark is not like that. Like a lot of the properties that you see abandoned are not owned by the city. Some of them are, but some of them are privately owned. People who walked away from their property 15 years ago and left it like that, right? And because we live in America, I can't just take the property, but we have to create a land bank where we begin to create eminent domain and other kind of things and amass that property and get 3 or 4 of you guys, and you come to us with a good plan, a good strategy, and we find a way to get it to you so you can develop what you need to develop. And that's really what our strategy should be around, and how we do it collectively and together to build the things that we want to see for ourselves.
Yes.
And the key that the mayor is talking about is to build.
Yes.
Black folks are good at fighting. In fact, we fight our mama, if necessary, our grandmama. But to build, other people have in their culture, the Chinese, we're gonna build. The Chinese, they're gonna go past the Japanese and the Korean to go down to find the Chinese so they can start to build together. So we are good at fighting, but it's the building. But we invented building. It ain't nothing new. Massive building cities, building cultures. So building is a part of our gene pool too. But the mayor just gave you an analysis in a short few sentences of how people package monies. They meet in their synagogue. They said we're gonna get a block of housing. They shake on it. They didn't even have no piece of paper. It's once you do it in the synagogue, that puts a covenant on it. These other people have these other groups. So we have to have that type of communal cooperative process in place. So now we're getting ready for the insanity of the Christmas and the New Year's Eve, so we can leave here that the mayor done told us we can do it, but we got to do it together. We got to hook it up, and then he's willing to help provide some strategies in making it work.
Let's get a picture together. Let's get them. Priceless information we got. Let's all come together. Can I?
Coming over here with you.